Hey there, my name is Josselyne Herman-Saccio. I am the host of the Be Unmessablewith podcast, and I'm also a master coach and vision architect who has been working with people for more than 35 years to develop their ability to be unmessable with no matter what life throws at them and live their dreams, not merely chase them. And today my guest is a dear friend and a former client who is the genius entrepreneur behind Bali Living. And we're going to dive into, going from corporate shoulds to listening to your vision. It's kind of a real life eat, pray, love story about when she went to Bali and the moment that a weighted blanket became a tool for safety and security in the world. So if you are looking for permission to follow your heart, this episode is for you. Hey there, welcome to Be Unmessable With, the podcast. I'm your host, Josselyne Herman-Saccio, and today my guest is my friend and a former client, Elizabeth Grosjean. She is the founder and CEO of Bali Living, which is an award-winning sleep wellness company, and God knows sleep is one of the top things that mess with people. And it's known for its luxurious weighted blankets. Bali Living has won numerous awards for their products and distinctions from the Sleep Foundation, Sleep Doctor, and New York Times Wirecutter, and lots of other ones as well. But Elizabeth's mission through Bali is that all people feel safe and at home in their bodies, and I love that mission, and connected to intuition through a supported and regulated nervous system. And as someone who has used her blankets, I can attest to the fact that they do impact your nervous system in an amazingly positive way and your sleep. Elizabeth launched the company in 2018 while she was on a sabbatical to Bali, where she was transformed by the experience of living in connection with nature and the community. So I'm very excited that she said yes to being on the show. Let's welcome Elizabeth Grosjean.
Absolutely. It's so good to see you too. It feels like it's been a while. It's not been, but
it's only been a few weeks, but we're used to talking to each other a lot more often. So it's nice to see your beautiful face.
Thank you.
So tell us, about, I like to talk about you as like the real life eat, pray, love sort of story, given everything that happened in Bali. But tell us a little bit about how you ended up doing what you're doing. And then we'll talk about, Bali and the whole idea of weighted blankets and about being unmessable with and all of that. But just give us, like, in a nutshell, so to speak, what brought you here?
Yeah, it's funny because it was a journey. I didn't have an end in sight. I was just listening to the signals, and I was doing, oh my gosh, morning pages. I forgot what book that comes out of. The Artist's Way.
Oh, The Artist's Way, yes.
So I was in a corporate job in New York. I was feeling like this can't be it. I'm single, so I didn't have a family. I was just looking for reward and validation through my career, and it was never going to do it. It was never going to fill that cup. And I was doing morning pages and just kept getting this tug that I needed to quit my job and travel. And it felt really embarrassing to admit that to people. I had breakfast with a boss and I gave her my notice and she talked me out of it. I actually spent another year working with her and seeing a therapist. I mean, it was like I tried to check every box I could to make sure that there was no alternative to that. So ended up being, no, I just want to quit my job and travel. So I did it. And
that takes a lot of courage. I mean, I'm sure, those of you listening, how many of you have had that thought at one point? It's like, oh my God, let me just get out of this rat race and go, be on an adventure and travel or go do something new. And not everybody does it. In fact, very few people do it. So what was it that you drew upon to be able to take that risk? Because it's a risk.
I wish I could tell you the answer other than I tried everything else to scratch the itch. And we have shared this video before, the nail in the head video, where I try to speak quickly about it, but this woman's just complaining because she has a nail stuck in her head. And she's like, why won't you listen to me about how upset I am? And her poor boyfriend's just saying, well, maybe you should take the nail out of your head. And she's like, you don't understand. And my sweaters are torn. And for me, traveling was that thing. It was like, until I did it, nothing was going to make me feel, I guess, complete.
Yeah.
or satisfy that curiosity. And I've always been somebody that had a lot of expectations for what life is supposed to be about for me. And I've always been pushing myself to the bleeding edge of experiences. And it doesn't make it easy. The fact that I do it often, it stays really hard.
Yeah. It's like a lesson your brain doesn't learn, it's kind of like it still
Yes.
puts up those resistance points. I get it.
And it stresses out my family members. They see me being discontent and taking risks, and they don't understand why is she always doing it this way. But as I've leaned into it, like taking that trip was the turning point for me, where I really just leaned into it and said, you know what, I've just got to do this. And everyone's worried and concerned about me, that I'm not happy. And why do I have to do this? So it ended up turning out really beautifully. And we'll get to that. And I think now that I let myself surrender to that need almost and let it take me where it needed to take me to go. And it's turned out like more than okay. It turned out magical and beautiful and miraculous. And so ironic, because it ended up rewarding me with all of the things that I thought I wanted before on paper. Now I have
Mm.
all this great life on paper, but that's not what it's about, which makes it even better, because I really got to experience at the heart of the essence of what that thing was that I was longing for. And as a result, all these other things came with it, which, validation and money and all those things, which are nice for other people to see, and it kind of validated the difficult choices that I was making at the time.
So tell us more about what happened once you landed in Bali.
Okay. So, yeah, I got there without a return ticket. I had some savings, so I had enough runway. And I just let myself, well, first I turned it into a New Yorker A-type personality approach. I was like, okay, I've only got as much time as I've got. I've got to make the most of this opportunity. So I made a lot of lists about all the things I should do so I don't waste my time. It was like a scarcity mindset. It was like, I've got to make the most of this. And after a few days of checking lists off and trying to optimize my time to do the most stuff, I was like, oh my God, I'm stressed out again. And I'm just like I was before. So I took the opposite approach. I threw out all the lists, all the shoulds, and I started living every day, just waking up whenever I woke up. And then first tuning into my body and saying, what is it that I feel like doing? What is, if I want to stay in bed, stay in bed. If I want to go to yoga, if I want to go to a walk, like read a book, whatever. And it was the first time I think I'd asked myself the question of what is it, not that you should do, but that your body or that your heart really is asking you for, and started to listen to that and pay attention to that. And I had amazing friends and community that I built up there, people who were on similar paths and journeys. And they taught me a lot too about developing a relationship with either God or intuition. I'd ride my motorbike and have conversations with God. It's like if you're out of practice, it's like reconnecting to an old friend, but you've got to do some reps, put the time in, and build it up so that you can be a little bit more receptive to hearing the responses to questions you might ask. And so that was sort of phase one of the journey. And I came back to New York. I was like, okay, I'm good. 3 months. I feel so great. I'm going to come back. I'm going to interview and get another job. And as soon as I got back to New York, of course, I entered reverse culture shock and kind of hit the floor like, oh my God, it's worse than before, because I thought I quote unquote found happiness. Now I'm back here and it's slipped away again. So I'm kind of like worse off than I was before I went. So this was a real turning point, because I now had just a few $1,000s left in my savings account, which was enough to either get an apartment and get a job quickly and start surviving again, or it was enough to buy a one-way ticket and live on for maybe a few weeks in Bali and figure it out. And it's not like you're going to go get a job in Bali. I mean,
Right.
it's highly
You
illegal.
could teach people how to make lists. They don't probably have a lot of knowledge about that there.
Right. And so I asked myself the question. It was like, do I want to go into the unknown, take the leap and risk it? Or do I want to be safe and kind of go back into the matrix, for lack of a better word? And I was like, one feels good and one feels bad. I'm going to go in the direction of feeling good and see what happens. And that's what I did. And then once I got there, all these things happened. Like my former boss gave me a contract. So now I had income for some freelance work while I was there. And I started taking a serious approach to determining what avenue I was going to be building a business in, because I didn't ever want to be in a position of having to ask for permission to take time off again and having 2 weeks vacation and that lifestyle. So the other thing was, I think if you want to live a certain way, put yourself around people already doing it, and it will either rub off, however it happens, you'll get it. So that was the other reason to go back there, was to be in that environment of people living the way that I wanted to be living. So I went back on another one-way ticket and a little bit of money, and it was like the road just kept getting built underneath my feet as I was running.
I love it. I love that. The road getting built under your feet. So that was phase 2.
Yes, phase 2. Okay, so then I was, taking very seriously this project of figuring out what my revenue stream would be, what kind of business I would build, what my laptop business would be. And a friend presented at the co-working space on how she built her Amazon business. And I had a lot of misconceptions about what was wrong with building an Amazon business. I don't want to support Jeff Bezos. I don't want to manufacture stuff in China. I don't want to be an e-com bro. I don't want to support commercialism. All of those negative things. But I saw her as a model. It was the first way I thought, okay, I could question some of these conceptions. She was a former human rights attorney. She was sourcing her product out of India in a very ethical, sustainable way. And she was like, look, you don't have to be an e-com bro to do this. I'm a woman. I care about people. I'm doing this. I almost didn't do it because I was like, I don't want to support Jeff Bezos. But then it's like so silly. Even if I am or I'm not, who cares? At least I have my life.
Yeah, exactly. And you can design it. I like what you're saying. You used her as a model, because so many times our beliefs, which are not necessarily the truth, are limiting our choices because we just nick something. I mean, like I've shared with you many times, like you can't do your art as your career. And then I just decided, okay, I won't pursue singing because you can't do your art as your career. Same thing, I can hear a parallel in you're not wanting to do an e-commerce business. Well, then I'll become like these bros and blah, blah, blah. But none of that is real. And so much, for those of you listening, so much of what's stopping you from pursuing what really seems to be your dream aren't real truths. They're beliefs that are creating a lid or a limit on what could be, because you're so like they're lenses that you think you can't take off. But the minute you take them off, you see whole other worlds, like it sounds like you did with this woman.
Absolutely. Yes. So I'm so grateful for her to showing me this like chink in the window or whatever, the wall. So I started to do product research, and that just means staring at Excel sheets of data to find search volume versus competition on Amazon. And I got to the days later of staring at these lists, I got to the end of my spreadsheet, and there in W, like almost at Z, was weighted blankets. And there was this humongous amount of search traffic. And there were like 3 or 4 dinky, Chinese listings on Amazon for weighted blankets. And I was like, this is screaming opportunity at me. I've got to do it. Like every cell in my body was like on fire, like, yes, yes, yes. So I contacted a factory. They were like, well, we can't host you because we're going to be at a trade show on Wednesday. It's Canton Fair, which is the world's largest trade show in China. So I was like, I'll just buy a ticket and go to China and meet you at the trade show. So I did. It was like Monday, and I flew to China on Wednesday. I was like, do I need a visa? There was a whole other thing with my visa where they put me in the little white room because I did it wrong. But anyway, I ended up meeting them at the show, placed an order. No, what happened? Got a sample, brought it back to my villa in Bali, tried it during the afternoon, took a nap, and felt like I had traveled to another dimension. I had relaxed so deeply just by putting on this weighted blanket that when I woke up, I felt like new levels of relaxation. And here I am living in Bali already for months. Like I am very relaxed. And I was so moved by it. And I just thought, this is like something that everyone needs to be able to experience. And I'm already always so grateful for the fact that I don't have things holding me back from having this experience, a family to be, taken care of, or, I had the freedom to be traveling like this. And I wanted to share this with people in the West so they could have a little mini experience in their day of feeling so connected to their body and grounded and relaxed. So I think that's something that's needed.
Yeah, so, for sure.
So it went from being this financial opportunity on a spreadsheet to something that I was so moved to share with people. And so everything about creating the product and the brand came from that space of wanting to really respect people's right and their kind of ultimate sovereignty over themselves that I think we're cut off from in the way that our culture is set up to help
And
people find that, tap into something.
and like I had, said in your introduction, that your real mission is that people feel safe and at home in their bodies. And I can hear it in what touched you about the
Mm-hmm.
product, which, goes beyond the spreadsheets and the lists.
Totally. Absolutely. It was not about the externalities anymore. I was just so moved and grateful to find this product. So I didn't know anything about cash flow or inventory or ordering or whatever. I was just excited about this product. And this friend of mine that had been doing her own product research side by side with me had been really struggling to find a product. And so she said to me, why don't we partner and do this together? I have a bunch of cash. I'm just trying to find a product. You have an idea, but no money. And I was like, oh, this must be a sign. Yeah, let's do it. And we proceeded, but it was like everything started to get really sticky and stuck. And there was a lot of fear. Like we both were afraid, but I think she especially had a lot of fear. She paid a mentor tens of thousands of dollars to help her on her journey. And so everything we did had to go review by him. It was just, and a friend of mine said to me, you seem to be really happy and now you're not. Like, what happened? And I said, I don't know. Like, and then it hit me like lightning. Oh my God, I don't want a partner. I was like, oh no, what do I do? So I went home and I called her immediately. I let her know, like, hey, I'm really sorry, but I've got to do this on my own. This is my path to walk. The reason I'm doing this is bigger than just a business. This is my development path, and I need to do this on my own. And she has never spoken to me since. I paid her back everything that she had invested. But then I had no funder
Right.
basically. And my dad goes, well, you really fucked that one up, didn't you? And I was like, but I know I didn't. I didn't because I'm listening to higher power source or whatever. Like every cell in my body tingled when I realized that I'm supposed to do this without a partner. So I know it's the right way. I just don't know how. And he said, well, let me loan you some money to get started. And I said, no, 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 I have to do this all by myself. Like, I don't want your money. And I went into a healing session, it was called theta healing. It's like an energy healing. And in the session, I had a vision of my father and his true love for me. And I always get choked up when I talk about this, but it was like, he was offering to stand up for me out of true love and just wanting to be there and support me. And all I could do was say yes to that love offering and accept it and allow him to support me like that. So I called him and he wired $20,000 to China for me for an order. And he was like, are you sure about this? And I was like, no, I've never done this before, but this is what I think I'm supposed to do. And so off goes the money. And we placed the first order. And that was how the business got started.
Amazing, amazing. And we'll definitely have a link to your website so that people can see what you do and all the different products that you offer that, really do support people's well-being overall, not just physical, but mental, spiritual, emotional well-being. And as you know, and you're intimately related with my methodology about being unmessable with, the show's called Be Unmessable With, and I like to ask every guest just a situation in your life where you were dealing with something really difficult. I mean, you kind of just talked about one,
Mm-hmm.
something that might have taken you out of the game, so to speak, whatever game that is, but you were able to transcend the circumstances to emerge unmessable with, which, as you know, but for our listeners that aren't familiar with it, it's not about being tough. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
about not feeling your feelings. It's about being able to stay true to your vision, stay true to what's really important to you, what really matters to you, and fulfill on that versus getting into survival mode or reaction mode. So, is there any other situation? I mean, people that are as successful as you have many situations like that we can draw upon, right? But is there anything that comes to mind that you could share with our listeners?
Well, it's funny because you asked me this question in prep, and I was like, I don't know, like, life every day, it seems like.
Exactly, right?
But in trying to think of a more dramatic scenario, and I'll say right before this too, like nowadays, if this were to happen, it would roll off my back. Like it would be no big deal because I've been doing this for 7 years. But in our very first Christmas, we had this major PR piece come out that basically called us the It weighted blanket, or like the It holiday gift. And it was in New York Magazine, the Strategist gift giving guide. And we sold out of everything before Black Friday in a day and a half. And I was completely unprepared because I had no one else besides me working in the business for all the customer service. I didn't have help desk or any of these. It was a Gmail account. And there was just like a ton of demand. And I even had someone ring my doorbell asking me if I had another win. I'm like, how did you find out where I live? It was in New York though, so I think I'd use my apartment address as my business address. But our warehouse received a shipment of a new product, which was linen duvet covers that had been mislabeled on the carton, and all of them were misshipped. And if that happened today, of course, I would be upset. It would be an inconvenience. We'd have to deal with it. But at that time, everything was so new and so intimately connected to my soul. It was my offering to the world. The fact that one person would get the wrong item was devastating to me, let alone like hundreds of people. So I flew to the warehouse in China, in LA, and I walked into the space. We sorted through the boxes. I like wrote handwritten signed letters for every single person we reshipped and asked them if they would please send back the wrong item to us. And everybody did. It was just so hard for me at the time, I think, because every purchase felt like an intimate contract of trust of someone giving me their money. And so I was trying to handle it at a scale that I just almost physically couldn't handle.
Yeah.
And it was to the point where we even brought in shipments of blankets by air, which cost $40 a unit. It was ridiculously expensive. And I'd send an email out to the waiting list and say, we've restocked, and in 6 minutes, everything would be sold out. And there's no other customer service person. It was just me. And I was like,
One man show. That's a lot of entrepreneurs. They build something and they become a prisoner of their own creation until they get a team around them.
So that was just an example of, I guess, standing in, doing right by our customers and not accepting something less than the integrity of everything we had to offer, taking care of every single person.
Yeah. And, even though it was difficult at the time, you emerged from that a bigger human being, I would say.
Absolutely. Yes. And like I said, like if it happened today, we would be fine. I wouldn't lose a night of sleep.
It's amazing, right? And so for those of you that are dealing with something that seems like, oh my God, this is, so horrible, this could be the end of everything, just, 5-7 years later, it'll be a blip.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a blip that wouldn't even affect you in any way. So just stay in there, build the muscle of being able to deal with the challenges. And just talk a little bit about what weighted blankets are and how they work and how they help improve sleep and all of that.
Yes, it's very simple. It's a weighted blanket, so it's quilted and filled with glass micro beads for weight, and ours weigh anywhere from 9 to 25 pounds, and that is causing something called deep pressure touch to the body, which is a mechanism that has hundreds of scientific studies behind it to show that it helps the nervous system regulate, take you out of fight or flight, and reduce cortisol and increase serotonin naturally. And so I'm always trying to meditate. I don't have a great meditation practice, but what I love about weighted blankets in comparison is that you just put it on your body and it's a passive thing. It kind of does you. So it helps for anxiety. We did a study with the university that showed that using one for 2 hours in the daytime helps students significantly reduce their anxiety in college. And we've done another study that showed improvements in sleep onset latency. So the time to get to sleep fell by 27%, and sleep efficiency increased to 94%, which is the number of nighttime wakings. So there's a big improvement in sleep quality and also time to get to sleep.
Amazing.
Sleep is obviously
sleep is huge. Is one of the biggest things that mess with people is their sleep.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you and I have a mutual friend who's all about sleep. Sleep is a Skill is her podcast. A little plug for Molly Eastman in that. And, is there anything I can support you with? Anything that you're, in the last month since we've spoken, is there anything I can support you with. I'm so appreciative that you're taking the time to be on the show.
Thank you so much. I mean, did I say something? There was something.
You did. You said something about, if you don't mind me reading it, it
Yeah.
was like that your goal is to profit a certain amount and that
Yes.
yes.
We're
Okay.
trying to grow the business, and I feel really optimistic about that, but I did recently kind of get a clue that I might have a limiting belief about how much is quote unquote like possible or realistic to expect. And I think I'm in this habit of incrementality of like looking backwards and seeing the past and then thinking, oh, well, if I did that, how can I expect an order of magnitude change ever?
Yeah, only incremental
Mm-hmm.
increases or decreases will happen if you're projecting everything from the past.
Right. Yeah.
So, do you want some coaching?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, what I would do is you don't have to worry about the past because it's already happened and so you're already informed by it. So there's nothing that you need to do to reinforce that, other
Mm-hmm.
than be related to the reality of it. Obviously, you don't want to be in a fantasy about what happened or didn't happen. So you're clear about what the numbers were, what you did, da da da. So now I would just put that to the side. And, again, this is for anybody listening. Whenever you're out to create something that's unprecedented,
Mm-hmm.
if you look to the precedent, you will automatically be shackling yourself to what's predictable, not what's possible. And those are two separate worlds. What's predictable is all from the world of logic and reaction. I'm reacting to the facts, and here's what I can project based on my logic and based on the experts and all of that. So when you want to be in the space of creation and vision, you have to put that all to the side and kind of look from nothing at what is it that I'm creating. The number, I mean, whether it's 10 million or a million or 100,000 for whoever's listening, right? But whatever the number is somewhat inconsequential. But if you have the number, then the question is, okay, now if I accomplish that, what would be possible spatially, experientially? So what's the vision of this goal that you have? That's for you to answer, just to look.
Yeah, it goes to a life that feels free and peaceful and abundant, and for myself and my ones that I hold dear.
Yeah, and your team and your customers,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's not just limited to small group of people, because abundance is bigger than a small group of people, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you have the context or the vision be freedom, peace, and abundance, so that's your North Star. That's what the why of what you're even coming up with a plan for. And then what number would you say by the end? I mean, you don't have to share it on the show if you don't want to, if you're not comfortable with it, but if you want, I'll just make up a number. You tell me what.
Sure, yeah. The number was, well, I like the feeling of $1 million.
Okay. So let's say it's $1 million by December 31st. I'm just saying
Mm-hmm.
that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you do the planning, not from the present of what's happened so far, but from the future. So if you have $1 million as your goal, then you have, okay, what are the vehicles? What are the buckets that'll contribute to that $1 million? You're going to have so much from e-commerce. You're going to have so much from maybe affiliate marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have so much from, I don't know, you have to, come up with what are the possible revenue streams, including an action you could take is brainstorming with people that might see other revenue streams that you don't currently see. So you start building the vehicles that are going to get you to the million, and then look at, okay, so if I have to do 500,000 in e-commerce, and I've got to do 250,000 in this and 200 in this and another 50 in this. Okay, now let me do my backwards planning, which I know you love it so much, the planning. That's like
You
your
know
favorite
what?
thing.
I love it. I did it and I love it.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, it only took us a year, but at least now you have popped through to the planning plateau.
I haven't. Yeah, I get it. I get it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can see a life without stress, you know?
That's exactly the whole thing. So when you say freedom, a lot of that has to do with the planning. So if you can do a backwards plan for, okay, what would have to happen to do 500,000 in this area and 250 in this area every month? Like what will have had to happen, not from here forward, but from there backwards, you're going to then see what's missing in terms of your team, in terms of your structures, in terms of your affiliates. Like maybe you have 5 affiliates now, but you need 50 affiliates. So that's a whole other project to just start
getting affiliates, and that's not something you necessarily have to do. You can have somebody do that research and, craft the reach out and all of that kind of thing. But the only time I've ever been able to create something that was like such a stretch that I couldn't see how to do it from where I was to do it the way I'm telling you to do it. And it's got to be putting aside what's happened, not being informed by that. You're looking from what you want to create and going backwards from there, and then filling in the blanks, filling in what's missing. So tell me, yeah, buts, how abouts, questions.
Yeah. So I did the 12-month planning, not necessarily. Okay. So not in your way. I didn't take the goal at the end and then back into it, but I did lay out my 12 months, and I'll say the value of that was tremendous, because we're about to kick off on our highest ROI project that I wouldn't have I wouldn't have seen it as the number one thing we can do, which is conversion rate optimization. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah. So my but is that when I do this, I don't see how. I think I need to get some more help to see what I can do, because I don't see what the options are. It's not like I can just spend more money on Facebook, because it doesn't work that way for us. So I'm like,
well,
I
I
don't
think
know.
the first thing I would do is redo you have the plan you've done, which is great, and you've gotten value out of doing that. Now redo it from the future, from the forward, from the future, because this is the principle that, Japanese company, any successful company does this backwards, not forwards. So how they do it, it's the Merlin principle. And Merlin was a magician, and many people know the story of King Arthur. And the story is that King Arthur was a child and was strolling through the woods, kind of wandering and lost. And he stumbles upon Merlin's cabin and comes in, and Merlin welcomes him and says, "Would you like to have lunch?" And there's two plates ready for lunch. And he goes, "Well, it looks like you're expecting somebody." And Merlin says, "Yes, I'm expecting you." And he goes, "How could you possibly be expecting me? I just stumbled in here." He goes, "Because I live my life forward from the future. So if you want to be a wizard in your business, you've got to start designing from the future versus the present. The present is useful in the immediate future, but it isn't useful if you want to up level or break through limits and constraints and limiting beliefs. You have to start from nothing and go, okay, well, if I weren't limited by what I think I have access to, or what I know, or what my current team can do, or what my finances will allow for, then what would I create? And in fact, for you, this is specifically for you. I'm not saying this for everybody, but for you, I would do a $5 million plan. So it really gets you out of your thinking.
Oh, well, I was thinking $1 million net, which would be our best year. So yeah.
All right. Yeah. So whatever it is that would be beyond what you can fathom, do it that far beyond, so that it's like if you aim for the moon, you end up on the stars, or whatever that whole thing is, because you tend to overthink. You and I have had this conversation, and that overthinking can keep those limits in place. So if you're forced to get out of your thinking, it's like a fantasy, like you're not going to accomplish it. So just you're free to really create.
Yeah.
Then I think you'll see things that you don't currently see.
Yes. And it would be maybe a good idea to bring in someone else to do this with me that might have done this before, or someone running $100 million business that might say, "Oh, this is easy.
Here's 6 avenues that you haven't even thought of." Yeah. I mean, and people like that. And if you don't know somebody, you know somebody who knows somebody. So for those of you listening, if you don't know how, ask who. Because someone knows how, because someone's done it. And who do you know that knows that person? And you're no more than 3 people away from any dream you've ever had. So yes, for you, that's the next action would be find somebody who could actually have that kind of brainstorming conversation with you, and then do the backwards. See if you can put the rigor in to do it backwards. I know it's just easier to do it forward, because it's like the muscle memory is thinking from the past. But to think from nothing requires getting far enough out in the future that you're outside of your own thinking.
Yeah. Okay, I will.
All right. And then you'll have to let me know what you come up with.
Okay, I will.
Okay. And I know you wanted to offer our listeners something. So you want to talk about it?
Sure.
Yes, go for it.
Okay. So we have a special discount for listeners. The code is Be Unmessablewith. And if you enter that on our website, which is baluliving.com, it's be like boy. It's Baloo the bear from the Jungle Book. So balooliving.com. So that code Be Unmessablewith for 15% off store wide.
Beautiful. And I can't recommend these blankets enough. I know Elizabeth sent me one in Paris, and I have never slept better in my life. I mean, I have to say, it's also
Yay.
that it's Paris, but it was like being in a cocoon of happiness.
Aww.
So by all means, go take advantage of that, and we'll have it in the show notes as well. And thank you so much for being here. I just love you so much, and I'm really appreciative that you took the
Thank
time.
you so much. Yeah, so good to see you.
Yeah, you too. And for those of you listening, we'll see you on the next episode. But if you heard something that made a difference for you, please share this with someone that you think it would make a difference for. Share this episode, rate it, review it, subscribe, do all the things that help the algorithm of whatever that whole thing is, but do it. And we'll see you on the next episode.
All right, listen to the signals instead of the shoulds. Question the beliefs that limit you and design from your vision, not your past, not your reactions. And just use these simple nervous system tools like the weighted blanket that Elizabeth has created to be able to move from reaction to creation. I would love to hear from you. What belief are you ready to question or drop? And what leap is calling to you? Drop a comment below and tell me. And then download the 5 daily practices for being unmessable with. It is free and it'll help you keep your momentum in fulfilling on your vision. The link is right below. Keep learning by watching our next video now.